Hey everyone, Camille here from 88 Fitness Training. Welcome back. Today we are launching a new video series. It's all about picking the right exercises and the stimulus to fatigue ratio. So this video is for anyone that wants to maximize their hypertrophy gains, build those big muscles, and pick the right exercises. So stay tuned, check it out. All right, so let's dive right into exercise effectiveness and stimulus to fatigue ratio. This was actually a special request from Keenan, one of our subscribers, so thank you, Keenan, for this request. We love covering content for you guys, so keep those requests coming. Before we get too deep into specific exercises, I just want to talk for a minute about what effectiveness is and what stimulus to fatigue ratio is. Effectiveness is going to be how well a stimulus leads to a desired outcome. So in this case, hypertrophy, right? Gaining muscle size. Stimulus is just going to be the positive impact of exercise on muscle strength, size, and adaptation. Fatigue, on the other hand, for the purposes of this video, is usually the wear and tear that occurs on your joints and connective tissues. So to put it simply, the stimulus to fatigue ratio is a way to compare the stimulus gained from a workout to the damage or fatigue that it's causing. So ideally, you want to pick exercises that are pretty balanced in terms of stimulus to fatigue. We want a large amount of stimulus and low fatigue. So today we're going to go through some shoulder exercises that have a pretty good stimulus to fatigue ratio. But before we go into that, I have to caveat this with that everybody is created differently. So while I'm giving you what, general masses might think is pretty good stimulus to fatigue ratio, everyone's different. So you really have to try it and see how your body personally responds. When we're talking shoulder hypertrophy, by now you guys should know that compound exercises are definitely king. So we're going to start with a barbell overhead press. It's truly one of the best exercises for building mass of the shoulders. So in terms of effectiveness, I actually give this a 5 out of 5, right? Because it's a compound exercise. We're working multiple muscles. It's very easy to progressively overload. But in terms of SFR, I actually give this a 3. And let's go ahead, I'll show you a couple, and then we're going to talk about why I give it a 3 out of 5 stars for SFR. All right, so you're gonna grab, sit in here. Ideally, you wanna load up your bar and then press overhead, squeezing those delts. Get that nice deep stretch at the bottom and then back up, just like this. I recommend barbell versus Smith machine, free weight. That way you're free to move in multiple planes and as your body needs. But just like this, you get the idea. All right, so why a 3 out of 5 star for SFR? If we're talking stimulus, this is actually pretty high, right? Like it's probably the 5 out of 5 stars just because of how much you can progressively overload. But when you start talking about fatigue and wear and tear on your joints and connective tissue, this is where I would say fatigue's a little elevated for most people. And I could speak, personally from experience. When I do a lot of heavy barbell overhead press, I start to feel it in my elbows the next day and my wrists in particular. And not only that, a lot of my clients say that they can feel it through some of their shoulder muscles in the back, like their rotator cuffs and labrums and things like that. So because of that reason, I give it a 3 out of 5. But again, everyone's different, so I definitely recommend trying it. For me personally, I would actually rather do a seated dumbbell overhead press, right? I would probably give that a 4 out of 5 star for SFR because I'm still getting high level of stimulus, but I'm not getting that same level of wear and tear on my joints. So you have options and things to consider there, but definitely still an all over well-rounded exercise. I give it 4 out of 5 stars for being effective for shoulder hypertrophy, and then a 3 out of 5 in terms of SFR. The next exercise would be a dumbbell lateral raise or dumbbell side raise. Now with this one, I would give it about a 4 out of 5 star rating in terms of effectiveness. It is a really fantastic exercise for building up that shoulder width, fill out those sleeves. But however, with SFR, it really depends on the individual. I would say overall, I would still give it a 4 out of 5 stars for most people. I think you're getting a huge amount of stimulus in your side delts when you do this. People can usually really feel it. They feel that shoulder pump. And at the same time, you're not wearing and tearing the joints and the ligaments and the connective tissue and the like, as long as you're using proper form. Now for some of your more advanced lifters, this really might not provide enough stimulus for you. But if you're beginner to intermediate, then yes, I would say 4 out of 5 stars for this. Now if you're more on the advanced end, you might want to try something that provides a little more stretch on the delt. So for example, a single arm kind of cross body side raise. This is going to provide a lot more stimulus to you. You just have to watch the fatigue side. You want to make sure you're not feeling this in any of your joints or in a bad way. So definitely try different things and see what you think. But overall, I would give the dumbbells a 4 out of 5 for both effectiveness and SFR, making it a really great exercise selection for shoulder day. This wouldn't be a video about shoulders if we didn't cover the rear delt, the most neglected muscle. So in terms of rear delt exercises, the rear delt fly is going to be one of the most effective exercises. I give it a 4 out of 5 in terms of isolating the rear delt. So you can grab a set of dumbbells. We've talked about this in multiple videos. I recommend you either do head supported, chest supported, or something of that nature versus just bent over. So I'm gonna sit here, I'm gonna lean forward, resting my chest against my thighs, and then come up, squeeze, control it back down, just like this. Now in terms of SFR, I actually give rear delt flies a 5 out of 5, y'all. It's like the highest ranked one. You are getting a ton of stimulus and low amounts of fatigue. In fact, myself, my clients, I've never heard anyone complain after the fact that training their rear delt impacted another workout or they felt it in their joints and ligaments and connective tissues later. But in terms of rear delt flies, I actually want to show you another variation that I truly prefer, and that's going to be a cable rear delt fly. So in terms of amping up the stimulus, me personally, I feel the cable rear delt fly provides a whole lot more stimulus than using dumbbells because of that constant tension. So let me show you. You can just grab it by the ball here, crisscross your arms, come back, squeeze, and then control the eccentric, the lowering part. So come back, squeeze, and then lower, just like this. So if you're more of that intermediate to advanced and you're not doing cable rear delt flies, definitely give that a try. Stimulus is high, fatigue is low, making it a 5 out of 5 for our SFR. So we're gonna close out our exercises with the front raise. So in terms of effectiveness in SFR, a dumbbell front raise, for instance, I would give a 3 out of 3 for both effectiveness as well as SFR. So the dumbbell front raise, you just bring the dumbbells up and lower them slow, just like this. It's pretty good effectiveness. People usually will feel their front delts working when they're doing this exercise, but it does have a moderate amount of fatigue. So sometimes you can really feel the shoulder joints. For me in particular, I feel the AC joint a lot when I do front raises. So I would say overall, the SFR, it's pretty good stimulus, moderate amount of fatigue, making it a 3 out of 3. Now, if we change this to actually do the front raise on an incline, you're gonna get a large amount of stimulus, y'all, right? Our front delts are fully stretched while under load, and you come up and lower slow. So this one's really great because you're getting that high stimulus, but in terms of fatigue, this is high fatigue. A lot of people are gonna feel this the next day. It could impact your workout the next day. Like if you were gonna go and do a chest workout the next day, you're gonna feel those front delts, believe me. So those are 2 exercises. I do wanna show you another one that I would actually recommend. That's gonna be a rope front raise. So I would say this provides a high amount of stimulus and relatively low fatigue. So instead of just being a 3 out of 5, I will give this a 4 out of 5, y'all. Maybe even being one of the best variations for the front raise. And you can maybe create a hybrid. So maybe bring your incline bench over and do them seated. So you're getting a nice amount of stretch. You have more time under tension, constant tension with the cables, making it a pretty good exercise, high stimulus, lower fatigue. But you gotta try different things. So I know, for instance, James loves the incline dumbbell front raise. He doesn't get fatigued from that. His shoulders are fine, making that the perfect exercise for him. And for me, again, dumbbell front raises, I'm not getting a whole lot of stimulus when I do that. But man, when I do those rope front raises, now the stimulus is high. I'm not all beat up from it. I can still lift and work out the next day. So all in all, I give front raises a 3 out of 5, but depending on how you approach them, you might be able to get that rating a little higher. So before we close out this video, I just want to give you some tips that you can use to estimate stimulus and fatigue, because I'm sure you're like, this is all great information, Camille, but how do I actually apply that and figure that out when I'm at the gym lifting? So in terms of stimulus, a great way to estimate this is the relative pump that you get from the exercise, right? So if you're only like a set or 2 in, you're like, man, my shoulders are about to pop, like they're so pumped right now. That's a really good indicator that you're providing a lot of stimulus. Same thing, like if it's only a few sets and you're like, man, my shoulders are burning, this is a good thing. Now, if you did like 6 to 8 sets and you're like, like I don't really feel those delts, then you probably didn't get the stimulus that you were hoping for. So just consider that. Like if your friend walks up and is like, hey, try this exercise, it may not work for you. Like they might get an incredible shoulder pump from doing it, and you're like, I felt nothing. So just consider that. Now, in terms of the fatigue, I think the best way to estimate this is, hey, you went in, you did a shoulder workout, your shoulder should feel like kind of heavy, like it did something, right? But if all of a sudden later that day you're walking, around and you're like, wait a minute, like, I don't know, my elbow hurts. I feel the elbow, I don't really feel that heaviness in the shoulder. Well, then it was probably high fatigue. And another good indicator is if you try to do your next workout the next day or in the next 2 days and you're struggling and you're feeling those shoulders, well then the level of fatigue was probably too high, especially if you're training another muscle group. So let's say I'm training chest 2 days later, but I'm feeling those front delts or I'm feeling even the rear delts while I'm doing something. Well, I probably did some damage and fatigue and not in a good way. So that's just a common sense, practical way. It does require you to kind of log and journal how your workout went, how you thought it felt. So I highly encourage that, which is not a surprise. You guys have heard us say that a ton of times throughout the years on our channel. So I hope you've taken away some good tips from this video, especially, the point that effectiveness matters. I mean, you want to pick exercises that are effective for your goal, which in this case, we're talking about muscle hypertrophy. So make sure you're picking good exercises that work for you and help contribute to that goal. And then, lastly, mind the SFR, y'all. Like pick high stimulus, low fatigue exercises, especially if you want any longevity in this sport. If you are constantly going high stimulus, high fatigue, 1 or 2 things is gonna happen, preferably the number 2, which is you're gonna break. You're gonna get an injury, it's gonna sideline you. You don't want that. If you wanna spend year after year making those gains, building those muscles, then pick the ones that are high stimulus, low fatigue. And that might mean doing the same exercises over and over again. Maybe you can't do those wild and crazy things that you see on Instagram. That's okay. Like, we are here to build muscle, not follow the masses. So just keep that in mind. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. For more like it, check out our shoulder playlist. And as always, like and subscribe. Camille, 88 Fitness Training.